be able to move towards the south.
That the war is with Hamas and not with the civilians of Gaza. IDF has released footage that shows how an airstrike was aborted by its troops after they've spotted some civilians in the area.
יש לנו מטרה פה בשדה.
אתה רשאי עליו.
תהיה מוכן. לא, יש פה אנשים. יש פה הרבה חיות ואנשים. יש פה הרבה אנשים. זה אבא וילדים. זה אבא וילדים שמשחקים פה מלא אנשים, מלא ילדים, תרנגולות.
קיבלתי, אל תראה עדיין, תסתכל עליו.
יפה מאוד על הזיהוי, על ההזדהות. תעזוב את זה, יש פה לול תרנגולות, אוקיי? ויש פה ילדים וכמה בגירים שמוציאים אותם, משחקים. יש לנו מטרה פה בשדה.
אתה רשאי עליו.
תהיה מוכן. לא, יש פה אנשים. יש פה הרבה חיות ואנשים. יש פה הרבה אנשים. זה אבא וילדים. זה אבא וילדים שמשחקים פה מלא אנשים, מלא ילדים, תרנגולות.
קיבלתי, אל תראה עדיין, תסתכל עליו.
יפה מאוד על הזיהוי, על ההזדהות. תעזוב את זה, יש פה לול תרנגולות, אוקיי? ויש פה ילדים וכמה בגירים שמוציאים אותם, משחקים.
Now, despite insistence of IDF that they are doing all they can to minimize the civilian casualties, the numbers of Gazans who have been killed continues to rise. In fact, the latest violence has caused more than 1,400 deaths in Israel, and at least 10,305 people have lost their lives in Gaza, according to authorities on both the sides. Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry says that over 40 civilians, mostly women and children, were killed in a single night on November 4. However, remember, they do not provide a breakdown of the overall figures, how many civilians and how many Hamas operatives have been killed. The United Nations, meanwhile, has expressed concerns over the rising death toll. UN chief said that Gaza is turning into graveyard of children. Now, amidst this war, the most prominent Israeli voice in India, Ambassador Neo Gilon, has said that Hamas is Israel's target and not the civilians.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that if we are able to eliminate Hamas, as we hope to do, if we get we are able to do it physically. Okay, if we get the time to do it, as we hope to do it, it will decrease the chance significantly. The chances that there will be a ripple effect. I mean, the energy now, if the jihadists or extremists in the world are looking at the picture is victory for Hamas. They went on the October 7th, penetrated 30 Israeli communities, killed 1,400 people, abducted 240 people, injured many, and we didn't speak about the rockets. They are firing so far close to 10,000 rockets, by the way. Important to know, the hospital short firing of the rocket was not the only one. Their average is 20%. So we can assume that there are about 2,000 rockets so far, close to that fell short inside Gaza, outside Gaza, didn't fall on the target, and probably also killed other civilians. This is part of the tragedy, by the way, for us to explain for the first question, that we have Hamas, that they know that they cannot compete with Israel in open fight. So they go and sting. Now it wasn't a sting, it was a bite, but they did it also in the past. And they run back to their holes, to the underground tunnels, and they impose on the population to stay there. They threaten. We waited almost 3 weeks until we went to the ground for the ground operation. And all that time we said we are going into North Gaza first, evacuate to the south. And they were putting pressure, even threatening and even shooting people in order to prevent them, because they need them as human shields. They are hiding under hospitals. Their aim, it's funny, because our aim is to minimize the hit of civilian population for two reasons. First of all, we are humans, and we look at it as human beings. And secondly, is the fact that the more civilian casualties we have, the less leeway we get from the world to do what we need to do. So we have and their interest is to have as many civilians killed on their side, so there is international pressure, which is the only thing that can save them. And this is the problem now, that many of the people who are calling for ceasefire now are trying to save Hamas, to give them time to regroup. They're not thinking of the regional aspects of Hamas surviving with a victory picture. It will be disastrous for everyone. But if we get the time to achieve our goals and we cut the head of Hamas in a way that it will look that the price they paid for their success is too dear, it will probably demotivate people. But I'm not sure. I hope so. Surely, if there is a picture of success, it will motivate people, bad people, to do bad things.
Now, heeding Israel's warnings, thousands of Gazans have started moving towards the southern part of Gaza through the evacuation route that has been opened by the IDF. These people were stuck in the crossfire between Hamas and Israel and have been facing challenges like power outages, food and water shortages. With the evacuation corridor, 761 trucks carrying tons of humanitarian aid are also making their way to Gaza via Rafah crossing. The IDF has opened a safe humanitarian passage for Gazans to move towards the south. In a video that was released by the IDF, thousands of Gazans could be seen moving towards the south using the Salah al-Din road to Wadi Gaza, with most of them on foot and waving white flags. Israel has also dropped flyers in the northern strip urging people to leave and providing maps of evacuation routes. Israel is claiming that Hamas has been preventing Gazans from using these humanitarian corridors. In an interview to a U.S. channel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu repeated Israeli assertions that Hamas is using civilians from Gaza as human shields. And while Israel is asking the Palestinian civilian population to leave the war zone, Hamas is the one preventing them at gunpoint. With an evacuation corridor, Israel is also ensuring that Gazans get access to humanitarian aid. 2 new EU humanitarian air bridge flights for the people of Gaza took off from Ostend in Belgium and Dubai in United Arab Emirates, transporting almost 115 tons of assistance supplies to Al Arish, Egypt, near the Rafah border crossing point. This brings the number of EU aid flights in Gaza to 8 in the recent weeks, which has transported over 320 tons of humanitarian supplies. Aid is also being provided via road. 761 trucks carrying aid have entered Gaza City with 3,000 plus tons of food, 1,700 plus tons of medical equipment and 600 plus tons of equipment for temporary shelters, as well as 1.15 million liters of water. IDF says more humanitarian initiatives are also being planned.
We have said very clearly that the civilians in Gaza are not our enemy and we wish them no harm. And in order to create a better chance for the survival of civilians, we have asked them to evacuate from the northern part of Gaza, which is the main area of operations, to the south. More than 800,000 Gazan civilians have made the right choice to evacuate from the north to the south amidst these high-intensity combat operations that are now ongoing. We are still encouraging Palestinian civilians to evacuate from the north because it is dangerous. We made special corridors and windows of opportunity for Palestinians to move south from combat areas to relative safety. We stop the fighting. We don't engage with the enemy at that time under our initiative. And we make sure that there is a clear and reachable road and access to that road for civilians to be able to move towards the south.